As China prepares for dangerous storms, how is pop culture being mobilized?
今天你们对我爱答不理，明天让你们高攀不起。
这是我们连第一次和美军正面交锋。
朝鲜战争的题材以前是不敢拍的，为什么？那是跟美国人在做斗争的。那么现在很清楚。
What are the forces of cyber nationalism at work in China?
The little pings actually refer to a group of people who are very patriotic, very powerful in setting social media agendas and also in criticizing people who do not agree with their opinions.
And how does a new form of patriotic education contribute to security in China?
要贯彻总体国家安全观，健全国家安全体系。
On the 13th of October, 2022, a protest banner was unfurled across a busy overpass in Beijing on the eve of the important 20th Communist Party Congress. Days later, similar remarks could be seen in toilets across the country. It's likely most in China were unaware of these acts of dissent.
Expression that tries to stimulate collective action, explicit dissident activism, and criticism of top leaders are most likely to be censored. Censors are very sensitive to such types of content, and they react swiftly and diligently.
If one slipped past censors and forwarded such content on chat apps like WeChat or Weibo, one could get one's account banned. Life without WeChat is akin to being cut off from society. WeChat is social media. It's also a payment system and an app for purchasing plane and train tickets. Losing it would be debilitating.
When that is banned, you can't write like pay out of WeChat account. And sometimes the money is frozen there. So you can't take it out either. So that would actually be a financial burden for people if you actually put all your money there.
A few days later, another event made global headlines and put censorship officials on overdrive. China's former leader, Hu Jintao, was escorted off the stage. Official media says Hu was sick at the event. The incident was downplayed in China, and Hu Jintao's name was scrubbed from China's internet, not appearing in any searches for several days.
The censorship creates an environment in China where you don't have discourse. You have basically a party line that's disseminated and people nibbling at the edges with comments that don't get much prominence.
Despite tight censorship, protests broke out in several Chinese cities soon after the 20th Party Congress ended. The protests were largely sparked by a deadly residential fire in Urumqi, seen by many as a result of strict pandemic controls. This was the largest protest since the Tiananmen incident. Within China, the event remains largely unreported.
I think not many Chinese really know what happened in November last year when the white paper protests happened in many Chinese cities, which also led to the final opening up and the relaxing from the zero COVID policy. Because of the censorship, I think not many people actually had the access to this kind of information. But this does not mean that this kind of protests had no significant impact upon China's politics and also social lives. So we know that throughout 2022, actually, the government had enhanced its control over the society due to the political reasons. But we still see these kind of protests, which means that the civil society in China is still very vibrant. And also people still dare to voice differently once they are really facing some kind of difficulties in their life.
Voicing differently can lead to severe consequences.
大家好，我是芷欣。现在我委托一些朋友，在我被失踪后，把这段视频公之于众。也就是说，当大家看到这段视频时，我已经被警察带走了，就像我的其他几位朋友一样。11月27日，我和几位朋友加入了当晚在亮马河悼念的人群当中。我如今26岁，刚毕业1年半，在一家出版社做编辑。我的朋友们也是和我相似的同龄人，我们有着自己的工作，我们关注这个社会，我们的同胞遇难时有合理的情绪想要表达，我们对失去生命的人充满同情，所以我们才去了现场。我们不想凭空被消失，我们想知道为什么是我们会被定罪，定罪我们的证据是什么，在没有罪证的前提下，为什么我们可以被这样轻易的带走？
Has there been any public discussion in China about the imprisonment of these protesters?
No, I didn't see any public discussion about the arrest of people who participated in this kind of protests. There are zero reporting, official reporting on this.
The protests and any news related to it are viewed as events that spread negative energy. Professor Wang, a former diplomat who frequently represents China at international forums, explains why suppressing negative energy is important.
对这个社会的不满，那是肯定有的。有人获益多，有人获益少，有人对未来前途比较有信心。那怎么办呢？所以我觉得这个处理起来确实正面的，那毫无疑问维护了社会的稳定，对不对？维护了意识形态的安全。让中国人那个昂扬向上实现伟大复兴的目标。但是呢，负面的就是说，很多人说你采取了很多的封网删帖或者说管控教育什么什么等等吧。有人就觉得这好像违反了个人的什么信息自由、什么人权什么之类的。中国人因为强调是集体人权，强调长远的国家的、民族的，而不是光是强调个人主义的，跟西方人强调个人主义的那个不一样。比如英语里爱永远大写。但是中国的我，讲话的时候不能总是我，都是讲您、你们然后才讲我，是舍小利为大利舍身取义甚至这个就是这么来平衡吧。
If social media sites fail in their censorship tasks to suppress negative energy, they need to pay the price, literally. On December 2021, Weibo was fined the equivalent of $470,000 for repeatedly disseminating illegal information in violation of the country's laws and regulations, including its cybersecurity law. And over the years, more than 10,000 websites have been blocked in China. The blacklist includes the likes of Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and news outlets like Bloomberg and the New York Times. China says its strict internet control is in line with its cyberspace sovereignty.
中国1994年全面接入世界互联网以后那么美国人说互联网是自由的是没有国界的是把这个世界连在一起的。但是中国后来发现，这个自由是相对于强者来说的，对于弱者说，你只有被我监听的自由。比如说斯诺登事件告诉我们， 所以中国就有针对这个网络时代，是不是应该还要强调国家主权？我觉得他明确讲清楚了有网络空间的主权的概念，网络空间的内容它是有主权的。所以中国提出在互联网空间里面的一些内容，中国政府要进行有效的管理，包括意识形态的安全。因为中国我们有宪法，宪法规定了中国共产党的领导，所以很多人说我爱国不爱党，不可能的。你反对中国共产党领导就是在中国是违宪的行为所以呢，他要去美国人说中国要网络审查，实际上美国也有自己的网络审查，每个国家都有自己的这个网络安全的主权的安全的这个问题。
Inside this office, animators work on one of the country's most successful locally produced cartoons. Year Hair Affair, the name of the cartoon, tells the history of modern China and the Communist Party.
这都是我的，我要这块。
毛子，你是什么意思？
这块是我替兄弟们要的。
这块是我的，我的。
不服气呀？
不服气怎么样？
我谁呀？就是你！不服气咋的？
不要生气，大家有话好好说。
这儿没你说话的份儿。
还不快去倒茶？
是。
少啰嗦！
这是我的，
就这么定了。
别给我抢！这是我的。
两位的茶水，
这里也是我的。
Lin Chao conceptualized the series 12 years ago.
当时的想法是说，想做一个泛爱国题材，就是能够大人和小孩一块看的，就这样的一个动画片。然后我觉得还是当年被迪士尼的人所影响吧。然后就有一次在杭州漫展，请的是迪士尼亚洲区的一个总监过来。然后后来我问他们什么样的作品您觉得能够在北美上映？他给我的回答就是，能打动得了自己的，才能打动得了别人。这样的作品我们愿意在北美放映。然后当时的话就是冲着就打动得了自己，才能打动得了别人，就是说，先做了一个能打动得了我自己的一个作品，就算全世界人都不喜欢的话，最起码我喜欢就行。
The show has been streamed more than 1 billion times on Chinese video sites.
我觉得这个挺好的，激发人的一种聪明才智，能够把5000年文明把它给活起来结合网络化时代。
模型上来看，其实就没有这么精致，细节会少很多。
这个我明白。像这个肚子的这个模型算高模吗？
很精致的模型了，这很精致，对，细节很高的。
那一次应该是哈尔滨工程学院，然后邀请我过去，然后那次提问环节嘛，有一个朋友学生就跟我说，就是说他身边有一个好朋友，家里面很有钱，自己也很聪明，但是就不怎么努力的那种，没什么梦想，就拿他的原话来说。然后后来看了我的纳兔之后，然后就是毅然决然的去参加了海军。我现在在那个就是非洲那边，就是叫索马里，在进行那个护航，就是执行护航任务。所以这个是让我印象挺深的一个事儿。然后包括前段时间就知道，就是解放军营队里面有很多的朋友喜欢纳兔。
亲，快看，那是高铁，还有载人潜航器。
兔子，随便看，毕竟看一次少一次。
鹰将， 你瞧不起谁呢？切，我们还有更重要的事情。兔子，你想买点什么？我想买这个，这个可不便宜，不知道你们能不能出得起价钱？这么点钱就想买我们的盾构机？售后服务得另外加钱。我买。今天你们对我爱答不理，明天让你们高攀不起。
不是在打半导体战吗？就是想告诉粉丝也好，或者说从业者也好，就是说高精尖的东西难吗？是挺难的。但是的话，比起两弹一星，或者说要建国的话，就其实也是挺难的。就是说中国人是能够创造奇迹的一群人吧，就是告诉他们要对自己有信心。
有一些人，他们可能会觉得，比如说您做这个片子，他这个您的工作是一种宣传。
这个问题就问得很好呀，我就觉得。每一部的作品其实都是自身价值观的一种宣传，只不过说美国人宣传的久了，宣传的多了，大家习惯了，然后大家习惯之后的话，突然出现一个叫什么，就是打个比方吧，叫《战狼》，然后大家就觉得哇，中国人怎么可以会拍这种片子？像《战狼》，我仔细研究过，它是一部标准的美式 B 级片。就是爱国类的那种 B 级片，就是它很多的节拍，就是什么时候该打斗，什么时候该追逐，什么时候是男女就是谈恋爱的那种状态，什么时候有贯口，什么时候有相声，什么时候啪一下把国旗打出来，这个都是有固定的就这样的一种节奏在里面的。只不过说就是大家习惯了，就是哇我挥手。打开的是美国星条旗，大家习惯了这个样子，大家不习惯说五星红旗，大家就很多就是不喜欢中国的人，他就觉得就说啊你怎么能打一个中国国旗，对吧？但其实这种桥段美国很多地方用过。
时间到了 ，fire， fire！ Go go！
每天都听炮声，好烦啊！
那我给亲们唱首歌吧。一条大河波浪宽，风吹稻花香两岸。
The party can collaborate with content producers. And here, it's not that the party actually kind of, recruit them and pay them and ask them to do those things. The party might be actually providing a room, might be encouraging, or might be sanctioning this type of activities, but the party is not creating everything. It's those creators who do it. So that's actually very innovative.
Another indication of how China is preparing for dangerous storms could be found at the box office.
这是我们连第一次和美军正面交锋。
The film Battle at Lake Changjin is China's all-time highest-grossing film, far outstripping foreign titles such as Avengers Endgame or Spider-Man. Its plot depicts the heroism of Chinese soldiers during a key battle in Korea against American troops, and how the Chinese soldiers triumph despite being ill-equipped.
绝不能让他们过去，把他们堵在这儿。
The film was commissioned by Chinese Communist Party state entities, including the National Radio and Television Administration, Central Military Commission, and the Publicity Department. It was the most expensive movie ever made in China, at a cost of more than $200 million US.
Usually, I think for most Chinese war movies, it's focused on previous wars with the Japanese, for example, and also the civil war between the communists and the Kuomintang. So this is a war. This is a rare movie focusing on the war against the American troops, because we know that throughout the reform period, due to some political considerations, China seldom made any movie on this kind of topic. The success of the Lake Changjinhu actually tells us a very different China these days. So it also, I think, sent a very clear signal to the Chinese people. So the Chinese people, as well as the party cadres, have to be prepared for a war scenario, confrontation with the United States.
The movie run was so successful that a second movie, also focusing on the China-US conflict in the Korean War, was commissioned the following year. Like the first movie, it was a smash hit in China.
Heavy machine gun, 105 HP, 60mm mortar.
Keep the rest on full alert. Wait to spring the trap.
他们一定会呼叫增援，往后就越来越难打了。哪一场仗不难打？
State media celebrated how the film pushed Chinese patriotism to a peak amidst China-US tensions.
比如说朝鲜战争的题材，以前是不敢拍的，为什么？这是跟美国人在做斗争的。美国是我们改革开放的主要的学习借鉴的，不敢得罪美国人。那么现在很清楚，特朗普就告诉你，必须要敢于斗争，善于斗争，所以朝鲜战争反而就是很火啊。那个时候中国敢摸地沟里的屁股吧，特朗普的屁股，这个就是一种斗争的精神，觉得很重要。里面有一句话就是反复被提到的，就这场战争，如果我们不打，我们的孩子会打；为了让他们不打，我们要牺牲。这是毛主席解释的，叫打得一船开，免得百船来。
The Little Pinks are a force to be reckoned with on the Chinese internet. Remember the National Basketball Association saga? In October 2019, Daryl Morey, general manager of the Houston Rockets, posted this image in relation to the Hong Kong protests. He deleted it quickly, but by then, the damage was done, with tens of thousands of comments pouring in from the Chinese online. Many made by members of Little Pinks. The NBA subsequently lost sponsorships and other deals in China, and NBA games were taken off Chinese state television. According to American media, the tweet cost the NBA a loss of $400 million. Then in 2022, fashion giants of the world tasted the Little Pinks' wrath after they refused to use Xinjiang cotton in their garments. Online nationalists pressed for a boycott of big international consumer companies, including H&M, Burberry, Adidas, and Nike. In August 2022, it was reported that H&M closed 120 stores in China after the controversy. Just 2 years ago, in 2020, China was H&M's fourth largest market and the source of more than $1 billion in annual revenue. In 2023, H&M announced more bad news. Even Chinese companies can come under fire. Chinese sportswear giant Li Ning found itself mired in controversy after accusation that items from its fall and winter collection resembled uniforms of the Japanese military in World War II. The company apologized and withdrew the products.
The little pinks actually refer to a group of people who are very patriotic, who are not only patriotic, but also support the Communist Party's ideology. That's why they are called Little Pink, which is close to the Communist Party's red feature.
And they are forced to reckon with.
They are very powerful, in setting social media agendas and also in criticizing people who do not agree with their opinions. And also they sometimes attack people inside China or outside China for infringing China's national interest from their perspective.
Researchers studying the Little Pinks believe they are mostly Gen Z, which means most of them are born between 1996 and 2010. Of course, not all Gen Zs are hyper-nationalistic. There are also those who choose to be indifferent to life and work, best characterized in the phenomena of Tangping, meaning to lie flat and live an extremely relaxed life. But there's no denying that Gen Z Little Pinks are the loudest voice in online discourse. Why do Gen Zs feel this way? History provides some answers. A Gen Z individual born at the cusp of the new millennium would have been slightly over a year old when China joined the World Trade Organization. By the time they were 10 years old, China's GDP had quintupled since their birth, from 1.2 trillion in 2000 to over 6 trillion in 2010. Then, as teenagers, they would experience a new political leadership that touted the China dream.
全党必须准备付出更为艰巨、更为艰苦的努力，实现伟大梦想，必须进行伟大斗争。任何贪图享受、消极懈怠、回避矛盾的思想和行为，都是错误的。
When China's Gen Z entered adulthood, they witnessed China's Belt and Road Initiative transform many parts of the world.
在中国确实有一个代沟的问题或者年龄差的问题啊。一般来讲呢，50、60年代出生的中国人呢，经历了比如说大跃进啊、文革呀、吃不饱饭呐，所以基本上是对西方是充满了崇拜的，也没有设想到中国会这么快的赶上西方发达国家，2010年超过日本，成为第2大经济体。所以呢，这个年代成长起来的这个80后还好一些，90后更是如此。到了00后以后呢，他们看西方就一种好像不说俯视，最起码是平视了吧。甚至他们到国外去旅游的时候，就发现他们太落后了，又不能用支付宝，也不能微信，什么，就感觉很不方便。跟我们以前去美国，那个羡慕得不得了，觉得美国像第三世界一样的。
Besides the economic realities of their country's rise, there is also the factor of their media diet. Researchers believe that young Chinese, like the youth everywhere, rely a lot on social media for news.
Nowadays, like many parts of the world, people are consuming news through social media apps like WeChat, Weibo, Douyin, and Bilibili, and all kinds of social media platforms. So the important thing is that the social media really empowers individual users to post their own content. Everyone can set up their own WeChat, Weibo account, but one, they are subject to censorship, right? So some content, some accounts are sure to be censored if you say some sensitive things. And second, it became a huge business.
Like anywhere else in the world, the business of social media runs on likes. The more traffic one can generate in the attention economy, the more money one makes.
Those accounts set up by startups or small groups, they are very highly nationalistic. Because in China's political environment, it's not safe to really publish politically sensitive things or promote liberal ideas, but it's very safe to promote nationalistic ideas. The party state allows that, tolerates that, or even endorses that. So there's a group of very acute or smart business people. They are using this. They're taking advantage of this opportunity to publish a lot because people love reading those nationalistic content because that's highly emotional, sensational, and previous research shows that the kind of content that goes viral online are the content that could elicit your emotional reactions, including anger, including proud, and other kind of emotions. So that's good business.
Are they more nationalistic than institutional media?
Yes, this is very interesting because people would guess that China's official media, party media, is also very nationalistic. To some extent, yes, but as a, for example, newspaper like the People's Daily, or even Global Times, right? So as a newspaper, as an institutional media, now you have to do journalism or propaganda according to some certain standards, right? You cannot really fabricate facts. You cannot really use sensational content. That's not supposed to be printed in newspapers, right? However, on social media, it's much basically there's no rule, right? So basically, you can write whatever kind of things in whatever kind of style, and you can fabricate facts. You can use doctored photos.
Basically, one would do whatever it takes to get more eyeballs in the attention economy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the role of the party in contributing to the rise of the Little Pinks. Influencers with content spreading negative energy, like those protesters back in November, will see their content censored and may even be permanently banned from the social media platform. Whereas influencers promoting positive energy as defined by the party might even see their content amplified through shares by state media or government personnel. The result of all this is a rise in what is called cyber-nationalism.
Cyber-nationalism is a very big camp online and a very salient topic online, and it attracts audience. Nationalism has been a dominant theme in modern Chinese history. And that resonates with people. So when you talk about national humiliation, when you talk about China rise, people actually are touched and feel that's relatable. So of course it generates traffic.
But forces of nationalism, when unleashed, can be hard to contain.
Nationalism has always been a double-edged sword, even for the government. I think sometimes it will be dangerous for the government to let the Little Pinks stoke nationalism once this kind of nationalistic sentiment can go out of control. Actually, the government saw this happen, for example, in 2012, when the mass protests against the Japanese Senkaku territorial dispute went out of control inside China. Some mass protests in certain cities went out of control, and events like burning of the vehicles, beating up people also happened during the protests, and that was not what the government wanted to see.
But I think the biggest challenge is that it creates a very negative echo chamber within China where there's no room for moderate voices, and it potentially creates forces that make it more difficult for the Communist Party to control.
More recently, when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, there was a flood of online commentary asking for the PLA to shoot down her plane. When she touched down safely, it prompted another wave of criticism from the Little Pinks, some directed at the Chinese government.
Are you worried about the louder voices of nationalism in China?
To be honest, a little bit. Less so about nationalism really pushing the government to change foreign policy or even domestic policy. They have influence, but I don't want to exaggerate it, because the Chinese government still can actually make its policy relatively independently, probably thanks to the authoritarian system. If it is a democracy, I would worry more. I mean, not saying that the democracy is bad. What I'm saying is that democracy would allow them to have a bigger voice and would allow them to actually influence policy more directly and more effectively.
October 2007. Hundreds of Gen Z children took part in a colorful ceremony as part of coming-of-age celebrations organized by the Communist Party. Patriotic education has always been a critical part of the Chinese curriculum. The red scarves the kids wear carry great symbolism.
These red scarves refer to the young pioneers, a stage which almost all the Chinese kids go through when they are in the primary school. So when you're wearing a red scarf, it means that you support the communist ideology.
Only outstanding students from each school were selected to be young pioneers and presented with a red scarf. Parents watched as hundreds of children from primary schools across Beijing were asked to swear allegiance to the Communist Party. This is the cohort of kids that are today's Little Pinks.
实际上，你这好像是第一步，一个开始，人生的这个荣誉的一个开始吧。然后慢慢会向其他的更高的荣誉去靠近。就是这是什么更高的荣誉？就是比如说，去参加团员、党员，这样就加入中国共青团员、中国共产党员这个。
This tradition continues today, where the top primary school students from across the country aspire to be selected as young pioneers.
少先队员，他的口号是从共产主义的接班人，少先队员对歌，就是对未来的像我从小带着红领巾长大，所以那个为共产主义奋斗终身那个成为他的接班人，感觉到无上的荣光，所以从小就是这种教育吧，我觉得。
Under President Xi, patriotic education has been intensified. He has also changed the tone.
今天写的是什么呀？
我们今天写的是强国有我。
In September 2021, a new module was introduced. Xi Jinping thought was now incorporated into the national curriculum for all students. This book here is meant for primary school students. The ideology being taught includes national goals, such as extending China's global influence, eradicating extreme poverty, and Communist Party principles. Xi Jinping thought classes extend all the way to the university level, and it doesn't end there.
I think now patriotic education has become a very important part for Xi Jinping thought, because patriotic education is necessary for the country to be united, especially in such a tough situation. And also, I think these days, this kind of patriotic education has not only entered the campus, but also other institutions, other government organizations as well. So everyone has to receive this kind of patriotic education, even if you are not within the campus.
Patriotic education continues for party cadres, civil servants, and state-owned enterprise employees for the rest of their lives through an app called 学习强国. This was the most popular downloaded app in China in 2019 and remains among the top most used apps. Within the app, you can access lectures by university professors.
大家好，我是清华大学文化创意发展学院院长。
Learn how to sing patriotic songs. And get the latest news on China's technological developments.
They are using all kinds of innovative ways, including using apps, social media, to promote patriotic education, which I think are quite effective.
So if you are a civil servant, you have to clock a certain number of hours on the 学习强国 app in order for you to get a promotion.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
If you talk to people who work in government or in the party itself, when they describe what their key performance indicators are as an individual, they'll tell you that the first indicator of success in your job is whether or not you're loyal to the party, and whether you go to study sessions, whether you participate actively in your study sessions. And your supervisor, when he writes your annual report or your biannual report about your performance, the very first aspect of discussion is not whether or not you were productive at work, but whether or not you are loyal to the party and demonstrated that through participation in the party's ideological processes and education. So it's central to everything and everyone, and in that respect, it's extremely effective.
Whether it be online discourse, patriotic entertainment, or through education in school, the means by which the Communist Party communicates with its people have resulted in high approval ratings. According to the 2022 Edelman Trust Barometer, trust among Chinese citizens in their government was at 91%, the highest seen in a decade. The result is even more striking compared to the US, where trust in government was at 39%. Even after the COVID lockdowns in 2023, 89% of Chinese respondents said they trust their government. Why do the Chinese trust their government so much?
Decades of economic success actually boosted Chinese people's confidence, especially in its government, as this kind of reform and opening up process was led by the Communist Party and also the Chinese government.
中国政府这个支持率非常高，跟我们的这个教育，跟我们的这个刚才讲的宣传意识形态的工作是非常有关联的，毫无疑问的是我们的一个重要的成果。
We often hear from the US statements about how the Chinese is being oppressed by their government, but actually the numbers seem to suggest that they trust and love their government.
I think in a political environment with ubiquitous censorship, a police state where using a VPN to access foreign social media to tweet criticism of the government will get you in jail, it's hard to see how they score 91% and not 99%.
Promoting nationalism, suppressing negative ideas, implementing strict
opinions and ideas would help the whole nation to rally around the flag under Xi Jinping's leadership, especially in the geopolitical tension with the United States. Because people usually do not hear much different voices inside China, they tend to support all kinds of government policies, initiatives. Even some of the policies may temporarily harm their own interest. For example, once China is involved in bigger confrontation with the superpower, with the United States, definitely many people's interest might be harmed by this kind of new policies. But due to the media control, due to the patriotic education, I think most people would tend to support the government's initiative.
要贯彻总体国家安全观，健全国家安全体系，增强维护国家安全能力，要全面推进